It'll take a lot more than a 4-day weekend to make me quit. Welcome to Pulp Mortem, the search for a lost literary treasure from the Pulp era. My name is Jake, and I've got a sinking feeling about this one. I said I've got... But first, let's talk about the author. Wallace West was born on May 22nd, 1900, and died in 1980 at the age of 79. His first accepted short story was published in Weird Tales in 1927, and the majority of his work was for the pulps. The handful of novels that he wrote were mostly revised editions of his short stories, but this book is an exception. There really isn't much available online about Wallace West, and I've scoured my books of science fiction history and authors to no avail. I can't even find a picture of him, so let's just pick one. Yeah, here he is. Probably.
Isn't that Rembrandt?
Shut it! Wallace West is just one of those authors who either never made a notable splash or simply have faded away with time. It also doesn't help that he shares a name with this fella. Which brings us to Lords of Atlantis. In the dim past, men had fled to Mars for refuge, but now the Red Planet was a dying world, and the Martians returned to colonize Earth and rule over the Titans, descendants of those who had stayed behind at the time of the now legendary catastrophe. But the rulers of the Titans, retained by the conquerors on their ancestral thrones, grew restless under the benevolent progress of the Lords of Atlantis, looked back to a so-called golden age, and plotted rebellion. Here is a thrilling novel of what might have been the basis of the great legends that have come down to us, of the gods, of Zeus, Hermes, Hephaestus, Hera, Athena, Aphrodite, Jason, and Medea, and of a mighty empire which was weighed in the balance and found wanting. Lords of Atlantis is 128 pages and was first published in 1960. The original Beauregard hardcover cost $2.95 with a cover by Ed Emshwiller. Then this Airmont paperback that I own was printed in 1963 for 40 cents. The cover matches the story, so good job this time, Airmont, but they didn't credit the artist and there's no visible signature, so the actual artist remains a mystery.
It's just not right. That's messed up.
The original hardcover goes for around $80 to $100, but you can get this paperback for $7, $8. The cover is fine, although I'm not sure what this is. Is this a robot without a face? Some guy in a helmet who just isn't facing the camera? Hey bud, turn around! Hey, turn around and look melancholic like your buddies here. It's got good color and tone, with Martians, space cities, and fishbowl helmets, baby. That's always a bonus for me. The story is told from the perspective of Tariff, a Martian prince and a son of Zeus that has just returned to Earth from Mars. A celebration is in order, and a conclave is called with all the leaders of Atlantis, and at this point Tariff is reunited with his brother, Repho, the king of Athens. They are also joined by Plutora, the enigmatic pharaoh of the Egyptians, and his daughter, Pandora, who is engaged to Repho. Pandora. Pandora. Anyways, Tariff and Pandora blow off this lame meeting and decide to go exploring in a nearby forbidden cave. Now apparently it is common knowledge that this cave is forbidden because there is magic smoke in this cave that will make you high.
I'm getting high on reefer.
So naturally, they puff a bunch of cave smoke, get hotboxed, and black out. But not before Pandora accidentally discloses a secret plot of her father and Repho.
I shouldn't have told you that.
After he's sobered up, Tariff confronts his brother about the plot, but Repho believes his bride has been deflowered by Tariff. Snap! They fight! But their duel is interrupted by a comet that passes between Earth and Mars and explodes. The rebellion begins.
I'm revolting.
But all help from Mars is cut off due to the debris of the comet. The Atlanteans are on their own, but their enemies have a secret plan that could spell disaster for Atlantis. Will Tariff uncover the mystery of his brother's treachery before it's too late? Will our hero get the girl? Or perhaps a better question, does he want to get the girl named Pandora? Will Zeus find a cure for his gout? It's just coffee today. Pacing. This book is expertly paced. For being a very short book, West crammed a lot in here. This book has no fat, but nothing felt rushed or shortchanged. There was a ton of action, political intrigue, double crosses, revelations, and pterodactyls. Fair warning, this video is gonna have more plump nudes and teeny peepees than the Louvre. West clearly did his Greek mythological homework here. At first I was kind of annoyed because it seemed like West was just telling a story he wanted to tell while using these mythological characters as a supporting cast. But as the book came to a close, he wove Tariff and Repho and these other characters into the myth itself in a satisfying way. If you're a fan of Greek mythology, then you won't be disappointed with the end revelation. You can see influence from Homer, Plato, and even the New King James Bible in West's writing style. He attempts an almost Odyssey-like prose without the dactylic rhythm. It is very inconsistent, but it does a serviceable job in elevating his writing style, if just a smidge. I was worried after the first 2 chapters because at that point we have met dozens of characters. Although we already know most of them by name, they are obviously quite different from the Greek mythos, so essentially these are brand new characters just with ancient names. I'm not gonna lie, my mind was straining to try and keep up with who's who now. Despite that initial hill, West settled in and the central characters were given plenty of room to breathe. I found that many of the pulps offer zero characterization, especially to the protagonists and to women, but this seems to be West's strength. Now I do think this book has too many characters, but the core characters felt believable, interesting, and authentic, complete with flaws. Hermes is a drunk, Hera is fat, and like I said before, poor Zeus got the gout. Alright, and now, the bad. As I just alluded to, there is just too many characters. I think West pressured himself to include all Greek mythological figures, but the story really would have benefited from some careful editing. We didn't need Jason and the Argonauts, they felt tacked on. It's nice that Apollo was here, but he literally just fetched wine for Zeus, and the same could be said for Heracles. These characters have great depth and interesting stories, but here they were just cameos. There's even biblical references, but again, they're just tacked on. The origin of nearly every Greek myth did not have to be explained in a 128-page book. Now, nothing broke the story, and these are all pretty good ideas, but these are good ideas that would have benefited from a much larger book. Wallace West filled his plate, and it's all good stuff, but it's just too much. I've said before that I like both hard and soft sci-fi styles, and though loose, everything in here is given a scientific explanation. Well, most everything. The characters are not magical gods, they're just people from another planet, except Medea, the sorceress. She uses magic without a scientific explanation. That boundary between fantasy and science fiction is long debated within the speculative fiction community. I'm not a purist either way, and I'll even enjoy a merging of the subgenres as long as it's done with care. The original Star Wars trilogy is a prime example of science fantasy. But when you have a story that is 98% science fiction and one scene of magical fantasy, it just seems like a mistake. Plutora, the pharaoh, keeps coining phrases. He will laugh, snap his fingers, and command his scribe to write down what he just said, even though sometimes the scribe isn't even there. It's almost as if he knows he's a historical character coining things for our sake. This happens too many times. Somebody find John Liley and put him on blast for plagiarizing a fictional 7-foot-tall pharaoh with "All is fair in love and war." These clunky winks to the audience left the fourth wall seriously wobbling. Maybe West thought that this apocalyptic tale about the end of a civilization needed more humor? It was weird, it shot you clean out of the story, and it removed any danger or fear from this villain. It is very difficult to make an antagonist that is both scary and goofy at the same time. If you attempt it, most of the time they just end up being goofy. Speaking of goofy, how do you know if somebody's from Mars? Well, they have red hair, of course, because Mars is red.
Wait, really? What's so different about us besides our hair color?
This confirms what we all know to be true, but what science has been unable or unwilling to prove. Gingers are aliens. There is a giant communication tower that powers the entire world via Orichalcum, called Bab-El. Bab-El. I'll give you one guess as to what happens to it. The ocean is constantly rising, and we have one dam that is holding back the Atlantic. Okay. Now, pretend with me that you have a foe who has openly called for the complete and utter destruction of your entire people, who also stole massive quantities of highly volatile and radioactive plutonium, I mean orichalcum. Maybe send one guard to the dam. 2 guards. Send 2 guards. Maybe send all the guards. Ah! I'm sorry if I spoiled the fact that Atlantis doesn't make it. Horses. Apparently, gang, we're still using horse and carriages. But the Atlanteans do have some internal combustion engine vehicles in their museum. When Tariff was unable to procure a horse near the end, he was forced to use one of these outdated cars, begrudgingly. This might ruffle some Atlantean and Amish feathers, but cars are better than horses in almost every way. Just ask George Henry Smith. Hey, why you throwing stones? Listen, I don't have a problem taking this hard of a stance, because if you're watching this on YouTube, then you ain't Amish. Come at me, Jebediah. So what's the verdict? Personal collection. This isn't the somber catastrophe that it could have been. It's a fun, quick read with a lot of heart. This book is earnest, and the research and love that Wallace West put into it is evident. If you see this paperback for under $10, that's a no-brainer. I do want the hardcover, but not for $80. It's not something I'm going to go seek out, but if I stumble across it for $20 or $30, I'll happily add it to my collection. And that's my review of Lords of Atlantis. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time for Spartan Planet.
The beer brewed here, it is used to make the brew beer in this refinery. Oh, Earth Rider, thanks for the Great Lakes. I wonder why.